Hello friends, today I have something that I just feel like I need to talk to you about. Basically there is a deck being kickstarted currently that has had some cards that I and other people in the community think are problematic. In my view, this is a really shitty situation that is upsetting and harmful, and I want to use it as an opportunity for some education for this community. So this is not a hit piece on this creator. I'm not saying that I want her cancelled or her deck cancelled. I don't really have a strong opinion on what I think she should do in response to this, other than what I was really hoping is that she would listen to my concerns, which she did not. She instead decided to delete my comment, block me, and private her account, making conversation impossible. I'm also making this video because I'm that annoying person in this community at this point who, if something happens regarding mental health and mental illness and the representations of those things, I talk about it because I'm passionate about it and because that is my direct lived experience. Basically, this deck was first brought to my attention by my friend CuteWitch772, Kara, who was sharing this deck because they heard about the fact that there were a few cards, the Death and the Hanged Man, I think it was, that a lot of people had criticism on how these cards were depicting black people. I have not seen those images and I did not get to see the conversation that was happening around those two cards in particular. But the good news is that enough people spoke up and the creator of this deck was receptive to that feedback and decided that she was going to change those two cards. And so that announcement is what my friend Kara was sharing. And then I came across the card in question, and that was the Seven of Wands, which depicted Britney Spears in that moment that has been photographed and broadcast around the world and mocked and memeified and commentated upon for more than a decade now. Now the image itself I think is entirely inappropriate to include in a tarot deck, but the message of the day that the creator put as the caption of this image was, "You may be stressed and feel like there are too many things to handle, but don't worry because you will achieve your goal and be successful. But try not to have a meltdown. Ha ha." And many of the comments were kind of going along with that haha, the funny bit. There were many laughing, crying emoji in those comments. Now let's talk about for a minute Britney. Obviously, I don't know Britney Spears and I don't know what her diagnosis is. As far as I can tell, she's never publicly stated what she's being diagnosed with. I think she's spoken a little bit about having anxiety. So I want to be careful with how I talk about Britney because I don't want to talk about her as if I know her experience, because I don't. But what I do know is how this image was used and what it means in pop culture. This image was kind of like the catalyst and has continued to be used to completely discredit Britney. When this image went around the world, Britney Spears was no longer a human being. She was crazy, unhinged, psycho, dangerous, unstable, mad. And more than anything, she was a joke, which you can see the continuation of in the haha at the end of that caption and in all the crying, laughing emoji faces and the lols in the comments. So even though Britney has never come out and stated what she has, the media and society has labeled her many things. This image of Britney has certain connotations, and to use it in a tarot deck like this with a caption or a message like that both plays into and perpetuates the stigma that people like me with complex mental illness experience every day. This message did not allow Britney and her experience any dignity or humanity. The message was, don't lose it, don't be crazy, don't be like Britney. That is stigma, that is discrimination, that is harmful. And this is where I want to get into more the community response a little bit. And it does make me think that a lot of people, even the people who are all about equality and social justice, don't really take mental health discrimination very seriously. And that is also why I wanted to make this video. I think a lot of people have in their heads that because we kind of sort of accept mild depression and anxiety as like normal things people go through, and because we try to be patient and kind and compassionate to people who have those mild symptoms, because, you know, if I say I can't upload for a week, people are like, that's totally cool, take care of yourself. Because we aren't really horrible to people who need therapy or medication anymore, that we've broken down stigma, that we're accepting and that we are understanding and compassionate. But in my experience, in my everyday life and online, very often I find that that breaking down of stigma, that compassion, that humanization, it doesn't extend very often to people with complex mental illness, to those more severe experiences of mental illness. Everybody is still happy, mocking, making a joke out of people like Britney Spears, people like Kanye West, people like Amanda Bynes. Like, you don't have to agree with what these people do. You can hold them accountable for their actions. But making them a joke, taking away their dignity, their humanity, that is discrimination. That is stigma. And when that happens to people publicly, a pretty strong message is being sent to people like me. And that is that people are willing to respect our humanity and our integrity up until a certain point. They will only accept our illness when it is presenting in a certain way. As soon as it presents more outwardly, more severely, all of that compassion, all of that humanity is no longer given to us. This is about acknowledging and protecting the humanity and the human rights of vulnerable people. And when I say vulnerable, I do not mean just that our illnesses make us vulnerable. They can, but I mean society structures, legal systems, education systems, health systems. These systems very often use our illnesses as a reason to suppress or take away our rights. That is what happened to Britney. And this image and others like it have been used to validate and justify removing her rights. And through this image and it becoming a joke, society's dehumanization of her has allowed this to go unquestioned and unchallenged for 13 years. And this joke, this exact joke, which is oppressive and harmful, was being reinforced by this image in this tarot deck and the "don't have a meltdown, ha ha" in the caption, and those comments that were all responding in kind. And this is not awareness. We've all seen this image. We don't need to see this image more for mental health awareness. This is exploitation. It is harmful. She is the princess of pop. She has so many iconic moments. But this is the image that was chosen to represent her and her legacy. Why is she reduced to this moment again and again? You can read all about Britney and what's happened to her and how her life is so controlled. She can't make decisions about her own body, her own medical treatment, even whether she gets pregnant or not, how she spends her money. All of these decisions have been taken away from her. She has absolutely no agency. And this is the ultimate fear for so many of us with complex mental illness. And I would just implore you not to equate an increase in some awareness around mental illness and how it impacts people with an idea that discrimination doesn't still impact us very severely in a lot of ways. And the way we choose to represent people with mental illness does impact on those of us with that experience. It can either be empowering and uplifting and validating, or it can be mocking and dehumanizing, degrading, stigmatizing. And just very briefly on intent, if your intent truly is good, then you should appreciate, nay, invite feedback. If it is important to you to help and uplift, but you are told that you are harming and your intentions are good, then you will be grateful for that information so that you can adjust, so that you can stop causing harm and you can help. Images like this and the way that they're used is a reminder, it's a message to people like me that you better keep yourself in check, you better keep yourself in line, you better keep being one of the good ones, else you risk losing your humanity. You risk becoming the butt of the joke, which, as I said, is connected to a threat of loss of agency and rights. This isn't theoretical. It isn't a thing that used to happen. It's a thing that does and continues to happen. And I want to reiterate something that I know might not be received very well, but I think it's important and I hope that you at least take it on board. That yes, the first harm was done when Tori decided that this was an image she wanted to include in her deck with that message attached to it on Instagram. The second harm, and honestly the one that hurts more, was done by this community at large. The many people in the comments of that post with their laughing emojis, with their lols, and then the many people who scrolled past my stories thinking it unimportant or insignificant. The several messages that I got telling me that it wasn't a big deal, that I should stop nitpicking everything, that I'm just trying to bring people down. But along with all those messages that I got, you know what else I had? I had just as many from other people with complex mental illnesses who see this stuff just like I do and feel less safe in this community. And I don't want to be comparing oppressions, I'm not about that. But I do think that when it comes to things like disability and mental illness and chronic illness, I'm not saying we're more oppressed than other groups, but I do think that there's a lot more room for some awareness of really truly how deep this stigma and discrimination runs and how it honestly really does affect us. And this was really hard for me to do this week. It was. I did nothing else for 2 days basically because I was so invested in these conversations that I was having with people and so invested in hoping that some of the people that I really respect and look up to in this community would stand beside me, especially after I was blocked. That was an attempt to silence me, and it was scary kind of waiting to see if this community would let it happen. Thank you so much to those of you who saw my posts, saw that image, and took the time to think about what I said. I know a lot of people who don't have an experience like me didn't see the harm in that image immediately. And that's okay, I get it. Like, it's hard to see outside of our own experience. But that is why it's so important to listen to people with a lived experience when they tell you something about that experience. Like I said, I don't have a strong opinion on what should happen with this Kickstarter now, but I think what cannot be understated is that the action of what changes with this deck is one outcome of me speaking up and of other people speaking up. The other outcome is solidarity. It is letting people like me and people with a similar lived experience to me know that this community doesn't just stand by and let this harm happen. That we see their humanity and their dignity and we believe in their agency. That we welcome, support and accept them. That the mocking of them and their experience is just unacceptable here. So regardless of what happens with the deck in particular, thank you to those of you who stood up and showed that solidarity. As I said at the beginning of this video, there have been other issues raised, particularly by Black people in this community, about this deck. And I think it's wonderful that people stood up and had their voices heard on that issue. I am speaking specifically about this one for two reasons. The first is because it is my lived experience. And number two, the fact that this is as yet unresolved. It hasn't even been addressed. This is something that I'm really passionate about and I will continue talking about, but it's never easy. I find this stuff really hard and really draining. And as I said, I'm less interested in the creator herself and the deck at this point because she's made it clear that she doesn't want to have a conversation with me about this. So this is me trying to make the best of the situation and using it as an opportunity for us as a community to continue learning and to make this a more accepting and safe space for people with mental illness and complex mental illness. Of course, I always welcome your feedback and comments down below, but please know this has taken a lot out of me already this week. So if I take a little while to reply to you or if I don't get back to you immediately, I'd appreciate some grace in that. I've already engaged in a lot of conversations this week on Instagram with this, and then also making this video is several hours worth of work and it's draining. It's draining. So I'm doing my best to talk about something that I think is really fucking important, and I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for all of your ongoing support, and especially, as always, a big thank you to Tracy Timmerman, Laurie, Lynette Brown, and the Hales K. I actually did have a really fun video prepared that's scheduled that I was going to upload today, and it's all about community and celebrating community, which is funny. That will probably come, I don't know, later this week or in a week's time. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you again soon. Much love.